Alright, come on, Kelly.
You got a scale.
Nope.
Big Fish.
You have to introduce it because you chose the movie. I know that much.
That's not true at all.
I know the rules.
Yeah,
Dylan
yeah,
will do it
Mason.
for me if it's my choice.
Mason has to do it.
Yeah, you gotta give a brief summary of the movie.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll give it some.
Right.
You have to give
Yeah.
some.
Fish.
Welcome to a Star Study Cast episode of
Wow.
F a Movie Podcast.
It's true.
Owen Wilson, sponsored by. He said, "Wow." Just edit it.
I
out.
get it.
Edit it out.
It took me a minute.
Dang,
There's
Dylan,
that
you're
beat.
hilarious.
Anyway.
Yeah, we'll get that.
Well, we're gonna edit it. Don't worry, Nathan, do it. Don't you fucking leave me in this video. I know you're gonna do it in the future.
You're gonna have to do something pretty bad for me to cut anything.
Anyway,
we found what that is.
all those times I had to cut Price, you know.
yeah.
Yes, sir.
There was to be fair, Price is the only one to my knowledge that has that dude definitely
specifically
been cut.
needed to be
Really?
cut.
Yeah.
He's
I believe
a
it.
couple
We'll talk about that
instances.
off air, but that's
Yeah.
Bryce, that's Mason, that's Mason, that's Nathan, this is Dylan, and this is Kel, and or Kelly,
Hello.
and or Kelly's Jr. technically.
Kale.
Yeah,
Kale.
2.0. If you want to know more about that, hit us in the comments below. But guys and girl, hey buddies, hey bros, how's everybody doing? Enjoying the
Slow.
next Saturday?
Ready to talk about a new movie?
We talking about a movie. We're gonna play a game. We're gonna.
What game we playing?
Yeah, what game is
What
this?
is
What game is this?
Last day of June. It's
That's hot.
we're gonna save her. We're gonna press R to save her.
With a shotgun?
Is that the whole game? That's.
Oh, I gotta turn the audio down.
It sounds like the Spirited Away, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Good.
Just no face offering a
Yes.
coin.
Well,
Anyway.
unfortunately, it's not golf, so it's not enjoyable for us to be playing, and it's
That's not
not
true.
Badger, so Mason may
Mason
not
will
pay
actually be
attention.
here for this.
Yeah, we might actually not have Mason checked out for
Might have
once.
some commentary on this one. Who knows?
Yeah. So while that's going on in the background,
Are these lights going to throw off the video?
I like it.
No, it's gonna make it
Because
even
it's
better.
I'm
crazy.
It's such a- small.
I'm kind of wanting to play with the idea.
All right, who
We'll see.
cares?
Yeah.
I mean,
Reminds me
we're
of
like
Cube.
in the lower third anyway.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's fine.
Welcome to the Red Room, everybody.
We
Kelly.
just wish Dakota Johnson was
Spicy.
here.
Ooh, Kelly gets to do it?
Kelly, what movie are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about The Marvelous Big Fish. It's just The Big Fish. I added the Marvelous, but you obviously already know what my scores are going to
Is
be.
Is it the Big Fish or is it just Big
It's
Fish?
just Big
It's just
Fish.
Big Fish. I say the because it really
got
needs
it
the
sitting-
in there.
Yeah,
I'm
right
already
over here.
critiquing.
It's on the
Just-
DVD
yeah,
around.
just-
It's
Hard
just Big
copy.
Fish.
Just drop the.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
No.
The Big
Cleaner.
Fish.
It's cleaner.
Big Fish.
Yeah.
Big Fish.
You can buy it at the Target. But
So, what is this movie about?
I
Kelly,
don't
would you
know.
like to take it away?
No, that's all.
I feel like
Mason.
this is
Yeah.
So basically, listen, we all know that guy who just has the dad that has all of the stories and just loves to tell those stories.
I don't know that, Dad.
This guy, Billy Crudup, is this guy who has been living in his father's shadows for years and just cannot stand all of the stories that his dad has to tell all the time. And basically, the dad ends up being pretty ill on his last few days, and Billy Crudup's character, Ed? I can't remember his name. Anyways, his character comes to visit and tries to sort of rekindle and, you know...
It seems like he's trying to like suss out the truth about his dad too.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
that's what he's very determined
Yeah.
to do for the majority.
Yeah,
of the
because he hadn't
movie.
talked to him for like 3 years
4
before that,
years,
because
I
they
think,
had
yeah.
like that big falling out at the wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah, so pretty much he just relives all of these stories, and luckily the camera basically tells you all of these stories in crazy, kooky ways,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
and he gets to figure out what's real and what's not. So that's pretty much it.
And if you want to have an idea, like mentally, what you should be imagining for those stories, Tim Burton directed, so
Yes.
it's Tim
Yeah.
Burton with color.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah, you know,
The Tim
this
Burton.
is this
Yeah.
is a
Yeah.
movie that, though it is Tim Burton,
Very-
it doesn't feel
Very
as
proud of that
Thank
one.
you.
well, it's like real time. Like it is weird though. Like Tim Burton definitely has a oh gosh, it has his fingerprints all over it.
Mhm.
I mean, Helena Bonham Carter's in it, so
Yeah,
that's, all,
so
that's how you know it's a Tim
Yeah.
Burton movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, Johnny Depp not in the movie.
He's not.
that I can recall.
Not this one.
It's good to,
Let's
good
see if I
to
can
stretch
see-
your legs without some of the
Yeah.
main people sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But it does have a cast and a half.
It does.
Yeah.
Bellatrix, it's got just about everyone in it.
That main guy you keep talking about, I guess his name's Billy Crudup or
Yeah.
something, like the incredibly like chiseled face
Yes.
guy.
Yeah.
I've only seen him in the morning show. Like, what else is he in? You said his
He's
acting
in-
name. I've never heard of him before.
I've heard the name, but I also don't know what else he's been. I meant to check his IMDb.
He's in Rudderless. He's in a few. He was big like around that time.
Mm.
I think he's not as big as what's that guy that was in Batman?
Christian.
You got
Christian
Bale.
Christian Bale. He wasn't as big, but I've always kind of considered them to be the same
Yeah,
like stardom
similar-
of the same era.
It's like Bale definitely had a much longer and bigger career
Yeah.
in the scheme of things
But
than
it-
Billy Crudup.
Yeah.
The dad, you would know the dad.
The
He's-
dad
he's
is
in
that old
everything.
Southern dude who's always been that. And then, of course, Ian McGregor, who...
Oh, yeah.
That's such a delight.
Yeah, agreed.
What was the guy? What was the girl's name? Marion
Marion Cotillard.
Cotillard. Yeah,
Mhm.
the French.
Love her. She's
Yeah,
Maul
I knew
on
that
the
was
side.
gonna. I knew that was gonna
Angel.
increase your score.
Yeah.
Whenever she came on.
No, if anything, it raises my bar, and she's not Maul in this movie, so it
That's
does.
true.
Like,
Oh,
she
bring
plays
it
a
down.
side
Yeah.
character, which is crazy.
Yeah, she's just a cheerful pregnant woman in this film.
Yeah.
Like this, I mean, like if I'm gonna start dinging,
Go for it. Ding.
I'm gonna
Ding.
if I'm gonna start dinging, some characters are unproportionally likable compared to the rest of the cast. And I'm gonna start with Ian McGregor as man. You either I don't know, unless then you just found him too cheerful and happy and good, but. He's definitely like the entertainment thing when they're going back in a story and they're showing young handsome Obi-Wan McGregor and like they're showing like his stuff. I'm like, okay, like let's just make the whole movie about this guy. And it's like very upbeat, very bad Southern accent. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
when you live in the South and you hear fake South and you're like,
Yeah.
oh god,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know. I bought it.
It's
I was
also
like, they're
like-
really good.
Yeah.
I know. That's why I bought it.
And then we just think they sound like a cartoon character.
Everybody sounds a little too Forrest Gump for my taste,
Yeah.
you know? Like, there's a lot of Forrest Gump Southern in this one.
At least I didn't
And
go full like Foghorn like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do declare.
I kind of wish they did. Like, you know,
Yeah, that to really ham it up, I think
Right.
would have made it to where you were okay. Like you weren't quite as jarred by it.
yeah. I know, like, so anyway, we have Ian's gut character kind of going through, and I'm going to start with, like, the weird juxtaposition between young and old, because then you go into old Southern dad, and I'm just like, I don't think you're the same person. Like, I don't think you were this like, the story is like, alright, that I can kind of get behind, I guess, sure, wild things, he's a giant. That's a big fish, okay, but, like...
That's a big fish.
Then we get to Southern Dad, and I'm just like, you are very unlikable. Like, I don't, like, than when you're telling the story, it just, I don't know, it didn't feel like, it ever, like, my brain was like, I know you're the same character, like, in this movie, but it doesn't just feel like it. Did anybody else have that, like, weird, like, distinction from them?
I think that like the father figure from the very beginning, the guy that's terminally ill or you know on his last few days, like he was a perfect character. Because I don't know about you, I know a few people like that are just I just gotta walk away from because they're just won't stop talking. Like
he's
he's
very
genuine,
Southern Dad, yeah.
genuine
That is a,
and everything. But
yeah.
like
I
think
could
he was
tell
good.
you I've met that old
But
man.
I would not
somewhere.
have wanted an entire movie of him, the
No.
same type character as the younger
No.
guy. So Aaron McGregor is like a delight for me. Like he is very extra and he's very, like you said, upbeat, optimistic.
Mm-hmm.
But man, with all of the crazy crap that happens in this movie, you have to have someone that bounces off of that, and you have to have someone that can his face lights up, you know, whenever he sees the giant and he gets blown back, and you know his hair. I think that it was a good
plays
character.
into the whimsy that
The
Right.
whimsy, yeah.
And that to me is like where this movie shines more so than these down moments where it's grounded in the reality of
Yeah.
the actual story that's
Yeah.
really going on.
When you're in, like, not a story, you're like, this kind of, like, this sucks
Like,
in comparison.
This is too real life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And plus talking about like the scenes and stuff, like anytime it was young in McGregor or whatever versus like real time Billy Crudup, like you obviously saw kind of like the lights are doing in here.
Mhm.
Every scene
Like,
was
Hey,
everyone's
we're in
a
you
little
and
bit like the
Yeah.
Fantasticals just turned up.
yes,
Right.
it's turned up a
enough.
few notches, and
Which it doesn't feel as strongly like a Tim Burton film as I would expect.
No, he definitely
'Cause
holds
Tim
back
Burton
for
is
this
generally
movie.
very
He
over the
did.
top.
Yeah.
And this is rather tame
Mhm.
for a Tim Burton
Yeah.
film.
Yeah, somebody had him on a leash that movie, and they were like,
Yeah.
all right, Tim, I know
Like,
you
we
want to go
like
to a
you,
12.
We want you to do this, but we also want to have a movie that isn't quite so.
Crazy.
Power goth.
Wild. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Black.
Yeah, imagine if this film had been Power Goth,
Right.
like just full, just like some full Mad Hatter, Alice in Wonderland, like all of his truly over the top.
Right.
Like the fantastical world
You guys
separates so hard from the realities because it, like he does a good job of making the fantastical at least be grounded enough to where it's like, yeah, this could be real. This is just somebody hamming up the story a little bit,
Right.
adding a little, embellishing a little, but not being truly fake.
Mm-hmm.
Where I feel like Tim Burton definitely could have gone the extra mile.
Flexed
Yeah,
a little.
he could have took a little bit more coke and spiced it up a little bit more if he really wanted to, but
See, to me, it seemed like this movie was just like almost like a worse version of Forrest Gump.
see, I knew somebody else was gonna say it. other
I've
than
got
me,
it in my
like-
notes. It reminds me
like-
of Forrest Gump with all of the crazy crap, like the
Yeah.
running across the country.
I mean, it's,
Right.
and it's structured exactly the same too. Like
It is.
Forrest is sitting at that bus stop
Yep.
waiting for somebody there, and he tells everything through flashbacks, which
whenever
is like
whenever he
exactly
spent
like
like 3
this is.
years like adapting to his new body that just grew in the church that one time, that
Yeah.
scene reminded me of when Forrest Gump's
His
legs
legs,
like
right.
just break
Fall off when he's
apart.
running.
Yeah.
Like, but so I totally get it. Obviously, Forrest Gump has a very high pedigree.
And then
It's a little too close to Forrest Gump for
Yeah,
comfort
maybe.
if we're being.
And then I'll talk about Forrest Gump in a second, but like after like his legs, like he's like I grew like in 3 years, and then he turns into Ewan McGregor in high school, like
Yeah.
playing sports. Like who believes
Football.
this?
Uh-huh.
He's
Football,
a 30-year-old man,
baseball.
Right.
Like he doesn't look anything like a kid. And then Roy from The Office is there. I'm like, you don't look like a high schooler either.
Right.
But that's beside the point.
Yeah.
But like, I was expecting like with the comparisons to Forrest Gump that this movie like it seemed primed to have a good soundtrack, kind of like Forrest Gump did. Like you would think like they would do something with the soundtrack, and they had nothing. Like it was more of a score.
Sort of, but
Yeah.
also Forrest Gump took place in like Vietnam. So what is
So
the
did this
iconic song?
movie.
Forbidden
Mhm.
Son.
Well, this
Yeah.
movie had the Korean
or
War.
Forsaken
so-
Son, or whatever it's called. By people are screaming at me. Anyone who's watching it, but it has that helicopter. You know the war song.
CCR.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, Fortunate Son.
Fortunate
Uh-huh.
Son.
That
And
was
you know
confused by
Absolute
Forsaken
bangers. You can't
Son.
beat that.
Forsaken Son. I get them always mixed
You
up.
c- it's not even really a Vietnam movie if that song doesn't play.
Right, exactly
Oh,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just, I don't know, like, Forrest Gump probably went for the soundtrack a little bit more, while, again, to this point, this one was whimsical. This one was just like, let's put a little village in the middle of nowhere that's
Yeah.
so upbeat and so culty that no song would really mesh well when, what's his name? Belushi? No.
Steve
Steve
Buscemi.
Buscemi.
Yeah. Yeah,
He
he's
was
the
awesome.
writer
Steve
that
Buscemi definitely stole the movie for me on that one.
wrote one line.
Right. And I want to talk about his character because I think it's so strange that, like,
It's like he
Robbed a bank.
hams up the main character hams up the story so much, but then the poet
Right.
is just like awful.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Yes.
terrible.
it's terrible, which you can tell has some of that storyteller bias to it, or
Yeah.
people who should
He's
be
like,
the more
I don't
creative.
care about that. I'm talking about me.
This
This,
guy
is
sucks.
my story.
Right. But I think it's funny that, like, so you have this, like, whimsical little town that, like, everybody's a part of, and then as soon as Ewan leaves and then, like, Steve leaves, like, the next time he sees him is, like, at that bank where he's
Dude, the
robbing
bank
it,
scene
Yeah.
is
which is
clutch.
so actually really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
But I kind of love that it's, like, it's very grounded by nature. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, we have this mystical fairy tale world, and as soon as you leave, it's just the cold, hard reality of life. And he's just like, looks like I'm robbing banks now.
Looks like, yeah, times are hard. I couldn't make it as a poet.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then I love that, like, he gets away, like, no big deal at all.
Yeah.
And then, like, I
He
don't...
becomes a successful like business partner. Like,
Maybe it's too much hell or high water that I've seen,
Maybe.
where I'm just like, I don't think it's that easy.
I don't know.
like a,
This is in Auburn.
yeah, he's like this big business
I mean, to be
investor.
fair, he did get away with a lot of money, right?
No,
So
I
maybe
mean,
just
they're
that check.
That
like,
bank
is it
already had
worth
been
it?
robbed.
Yeah.
Edward had to write a
Well,
check
so
for
it
him.
had been robbed by Wall
The-
Street.
Right,
It
yeah.
hadn't been robbed
Like
like,
robbed,
an actual
robbed, yeah.
robbed, yeah.
Right.
Which good commentary.
Mhm.
Oh, totally.
That's relevant in our day and age. Go
Yeah,
Stomps.
definitely
So,
not.
2021 GME.
Yeah.
To the moon.
Moon. Kelly, what are some of some of like your favorite parts in this movie?
I think so. Really quick, with also, I was thinking about the Forrest Gump comment,
Mm.
and I guess I do see how the style is with like the story back and forth, but I think the overall message actually is different Because, like, they're doing at the very end where they're talking about, like, the longevity or, like, the lifespan of this man, whereas, like, in Forrest Gump, you're not. It's up to a point where, like, he's
It's up to
still...
when he's 40.
Yeah, and then he still has so much more of the story, whereas I feel like in this movie, why I like it so much is it's, like, this man who's, like, building up his life, and that's his legacy, and so afterwards, he is living on by his stories, even though they were embellished. You learn when they're at the funeral, like, oh, the, like,
They were
platform of the
Very
stories were
real.
there, they were
Yeah.
just embellished, but I think that's when he's like, oh, okay, I realized the truth of my father, and that's just who he was. So I like the overall message of the story, I really like, but I am such a sucker, and I'm your traditional basic girl, that I like the romance part of it. I love Sandra Templeton so much.
Sandra.
I did,
Sand.
yes. I love how they meet, like, at the circus, and how he says, like, time stops, and when he, like, walks through the popcorn.
Oh,
Yes, that's one of my favorite scenes. And he's like, Sandra Templeton, I love you and I will marry you. In his cute, really authentic Southern accent.
the most
Yes.
authentic.
I watched that in high school and I was like, oh, I want a Southern boy.
Did you find one?
I did. He talks a little different, but okay.
So I'm so glad you talked about the romance because this was something that definitely stuck out, and I appreciate having a girl opinion on this one
Yeah.
because I won't lie, the romance, yes, in the little beginning aspects, I'm like, okay, I think that truly does, like, that is how you feel whenever you're, like, in that love moment.
Uh-huh.
But also the execution gets a little jarring because we get into, alright, so they've never actually talked, never
Yeah.
actually said a word
No.
to each other, and he
Mhm.
meets her as she's engaged,
Sure.
and insists
Yeah.
that he be married to her,
Mhm.
and then...
Mr. Steal Your Girl coming back
Right,
again.
Yeah.
I know.
And
The
then when
asshole,
she
though.
says, no, I'm engaged, and listen, we'll get there, but I'm
It was
engaged.
so clear though. As soon as
Yeah.
she basically said, "I'm engaged to," that asshole guy
Yeah.
that you
and then
saw
it flashes
flashbacks
back
of.
Yeah.
to
So-
all the
She's
times.
like, but I do
yeah.
know you.
But-
You're Edward Bloom.
So you're right, but here's my thing to it, is that they're both terrible people then, so
Yeah.
like,
That's okay.
so...
Yeah, I said, I said it was a good story, not that they're good people.
Yeah.
Right.
They belong
'Cause
together.
She's engaged to, like, Price, Big Price, and I remember they kept saying, like, the Price brothers, and I'm like, of course, fucking this.
This is why we picked it.
Right. But I remember she's engaged to that guy who's, like, clearly just, like, this big dopey idiot, but I'm like, hey, you fucking liked him for something, like, alright, and then she's like, but he's got my favorite flowers, so,
Yeah.
like,
Daffodils.
and I'm like, if I'm Ian McGregor, I'm like, that's a little too easy, like, I got, like,
planted a
every
whole
flower
field.
in the state,
Yeah.
like...
It's just.
But you're just gonna
it's
drop your
such
fiancé?
It's such an extremely unbelievable story.
Yes.
Dude, this whole
Kind of.
movie
Yeah,
is
that's what's so fun.
unbelievable.
It's an embellishment
Yeah.
of it. They
Oh,
probably
yeah.
didn't. That probably did not even really
Yeah.
happen in it.
No.
Nah.
And
But
then
it's
she
just
was
like,
like,
it was
yeah, I didn't
magical.
like the guy, then your boy...
Like, we just knew. We didn't even have to talk about, like, our political views. We were just in
Yeah.
love.
So, is, like, the modern day version
Especially
of
in
this...
like 1960s
Yeah,
or
we were
70s.
just
Right.
like, yeah, cool. Well, this guy bought me flowers, dude.
Yeah. What have you bought me lately?
Yeah.
Is the modern day version of this, like, she's just, like, dating this guy and they're engaged, and, like, low-key she's like, I don't know, he kind of sucks. And then, like,
Another
he
one
slides
comes
into
around.
DMs,
Yeah.
and then he's just like, sup, and she's like, that'll do. Like,
That'll
that's just
That'll
what
do.
That's all. Hey, I think you're pretty.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh.
Alright.
I'll stick up on it like, because he wanted to like fight back when he knew he was about to get his ass beat, and she was
Yeah.
like, "Please, oh, can I say ass on this?"
Oh,
Yeah.
No!
Okay.
You're out.
Oh my
Yeah.
god!
Cancel
Cut me
everything.
out. He was about to get his booty beat.
They'll understand that.
Yeah.
And she asked, she was like, "Please don't fight him." And he's like, "All right, you say you don't." And he
I'll
took
just
like
get my
the
ass
beating
kicked.
of a lifetime. And then she was like, "He's a stranger, and I prefer him to you."
So good.
But also, why does
You
she
are
want him
Sandra
out?
Templeton. I swear.
Yeah.
That's like the best compliment.
There
But when
she
she
is.
gets older, she's a fox.
Yeah.
Just the
She
lag.
She is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is just. I thought. It was
When
just,
she
like,
gets in that bathtub,
Ooh.
you're like, ooh.
I know.
Yeah.
Fully clothed.
Yeah, which is probably the least believable part of this movie, believe it or not, is
Maybe.
that, like, I'm like, did Jessica Lange get into this bathtub fully in the
Yeah.
morning? Like, you're dressed, man. Like,
I mean, it's got to be there's got to be some degree of true whimsy in the real world.
Yeah.
And,
but
like,
she had
that
her
kind of
socks on, and I
behavior-
just can't get
She had
behind
socks,
that.
a wet
Wet
socks.
Wet socks is literally my least favorite feeling of all time.
Yeah, but I mean, the love of her life is dying, so just like jump in the bathtub.
So let him go.
Yeah.
You know.
Put
It's
your
not gonna
head
be
on.
Go to
Wait till
sleep,
the
big
bubbles
fish. Go to
stop.
sleep.
It's your time.
That's what
Yeah.
Dylan says.
What
Did
is-
you guys like the carnival? Like which crazy story was you guys' favorite?
Oh, the carnival with Danny DeVito.
Carnival was sweet. Yeah.
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 Like-
I love Danny DeVito.
Yeah, and him being a werewolf.
Him being a werewolf.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Him basically just enforcing slave labor, like
Right.
contracts that didn't make any sense.
Which sounds like that's
That's
incredibly
kind of
believable
corny,
for
right?
anything Danny DeVito.
Yeah.
Yeah, and him asking the tall guy, like, do you
The
know
gi-
what involuntary servitude means?
Like, yeah.
No? Great.
Yeah. This is my legal guy. He'll take care of you. Like.
So Price sent us a video earlier
Oh.
while he was watching it. Price, would you like to?
It's when they're little kids, like he's just starting his story, and he's a little kid, and they're going up to the witch's house or whatever.
I knew it was gonna be.
And what was it like? They were walking, and one of the kids like, "Your mommy's a wit or a witch."
gypsy,
Yeah,
yeah.
your mom's a gypsy.
gypsy.
And then like some random kid you don't even see is like, "Your mom's a bitch."
Which, like, this is what, a PG or a PG-13 movie
Right.
tops. Like, it catches you off guard. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
But I'll
So
tell you what,
funny.
But
one
that's
thing.
true though.
What my favorite part of this whole movie was when Marion Cotillard, whatever, goes up to the dad's room and he's telling her, you know, he's got her locked in. Any story that he's about to say, she is just invested in. And she says something. He talks about, like, every town has a witch. And, like, you know, people die. Like, as soon as you look into this, blah, 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 you're going to die within 6 days, whatever it is. And, like, the milkman joke
Oh yeah.
was the funniest
Oh,
shit.
yeah.
Like, he just
Yeah.
delivers it. And
Yeah.
it's just deadpan. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, that was a good one.
If we're talking about just favorite parts overall, like I was telling Kel earlier that like my favorite part was the end when like he's going to die soon on that hospital bed, and it does that really cool like flashing back and forth of like the son telling the story
Yeah.
of how he would like lay him to rest and everything, and it had like that the bright shots of like them going to the water and
Yeah.
whatever, then
kinda
cutting
felt
back
it.
to the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that. That was definitely my favorite part.
I think my part is like right, and I mean really to nobody's surprise, Tim Burton gave Helen Bonham Carter probably one of the better parts of the movie. Whenever
The second time she's there,
the second time she's
Yeah.
there, so like
there
Billy,
was depth to that.
Billy
one.
Crudup
I
goes to
liked
talk to like her, and he's like getting this because he obviously thinks it's like some affair and stuff like that, and she's a second family,
Mhm.
and she tells the whole story, but it
Yeah.
has that. It's like that perfect middle ground of like you're getting the whimsical, but then the reality meets in this like
it's
perfect
very real.
right,
Yeah.
and it hits right in the middle where it's like, yeah, she's like, I mean, yeah, sure, these things are all the pretty like wild, crazy things that happen, but also the reality is that you know I was this girl who just thought more of him, and then whenever I got older, I had this thing for him, and he just said no, like my wife's the one for me, like that's it, and you know. It's her also not being like the hero of her own story, so to speak, on that one. So it has this sense of reality, but it also still connects with the dad story.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's the perfect like click moment for Billy Crudup's character, where he's just like, oh, I can see the stories for what they actually are now. Like, yes, there's that kind of, as you said, Kel, that platform for being a little bit extra where it needs to, but the like platform is still solid, and that part of the story is still relatively true.
Yeah.
I think the funeral scene, basically like the last like 8 minutes of this movie,
Mhm.
might be the best, just because, like Price, you mentioned how it felt real, the conversation and the story that Billy Crudup was saying instead, plus seeing all of those figures actually showing up.
Yeah.
The witch was not actually a witch, but
Which I was
Danny
very
DeVito
disappointed
was very
with.
much his character.
Yeah.
The giant wasn't 9 feet tall, but I can't remember his name, but the giant was definitely like 8 foot tall.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like,
Or like the
it-
two twins were there, but they just weren't connected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, and it's just, I don't know. That part felt so good after such a silly movie. Like,
Mhm.
and then of course you know the guy's gonna die. You know what it reminded me of? 20 years later was Endgame.
Oh,
You know how like at the very end, like they do the. I think it's kind of silly, but like the panning shot of every like superhero and
Yeah.
entity like slowly. Sorry, it pans backwards.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it starts
they're
with
all,
like
like,
the
And then
Scarlet
where it
Witch.
shows all
Yeah.
the hero, all the people.
Well, I was
Oh.
talking about on the porch and like
Oh.
it
Okay.
pans back
before the funeral, right?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
the funeral.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah.
But it kind of reminded me of that, but in like a little bit more grounded way, I guess. But I don't know. I just really enjoyed all of the ending because it was just a nice like cherry on top after the craziest ride you could ever imagine. Like, I'm convinced that this is not a movie that like if you just put on without really knowing anything that you're actually necessarily going to love. I don't know. You kind of in my opinion,
You couldn't
need to-
possibly pop into this 20 minutes in.
No.
Like,
you
you're like,
have
what
to
the
follow it.
You
fuck is
almost
going
have
They
to
on?
be
all like
told.
lead into each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to think, because I almost was like, oh, I think it's too long, so I was like, okay, what would I cut out?
Yeah.
But any part I cut out, I'm like, but then that messes up like his next story because he sets that stage.
Yeah, this is a movie built on itself.
Even
Yeah.
even the crazy like swampy like scary spooky area
Yeah.
kind of needed to be there just to sort of tunnel
like
him
the
to
full
the
circle,
yeah.
yeah. Or like cutting out with like the big giant guy, but then the giant guy would have brought him to the circus.
Yeah,
And he doesn't fix the house
Yeah.
later.
exactly. It doesn't push
Yeah.
the house back up.
Right.
Which then almost makes me go back to being like, but that's actually really beautiful because you created an entire storyline that just like always builds. Like you
Yeah.
didn't do like something that wasn't like fruitful.
Think of the networking too. This guy,
He knows
God
everyone.
bless. He was in
Yeah.
Korea. Actually, they just said some
Yeah.
like random.
It's
Did you
very
guys
implied in
see-
the Korean War,
No,
though,
did you
because
guys-
of the,
maybe.
like, where they're at. Though.
But did you guys see that? I was trying to find it, but on the billboard it literally says like Asian festival. Like
Yeah.
it actually
Yeah.
doesn't
No,
say the
no.
country.
Everything felt like it was just like, I don't really know much about this culture,
We
so...
better not try to, we
Yeah.
better not try to
Well,
touch too
I don't
many.
know if it
Right.
was so much that, or if it was playing off the fact that it was him retelling the story. So
Right.
Who knows?
He didn't know
So
what
the whole
any of
story
signs-
kind of gets whitewashed.
because he
It's
wouldn't know
very
what
right.
any of the signs would have
Right.
on them in
Yeah.
their native
Asian
language.
show, right.
Good
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, well, I mean, even though in his story he clearly speaks Korean,
Yeah.
like,
yeah.
Yeah.
so like he should know what it all is. But like again, that's the embellishment part. Is that clearly that he's like getting this across.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and say my piece. I want to talk about the embellishing part of it because like that's like
Which
the
part?
main part of the
Yeah, I was about
movie.
to say.
She has heard me say this a million times. I want to
Fight
say it
you
a
on every
million and
time.
one right
You got a
now.
person in between you.
But it's just the main like drive of this movie is that this man like seems to be a good father. He just embellishes his stories when he's telling people, and people need to realize that they're being embellished. He does care about them,
Mhm.
but he like just embellishes his stories.
Yeah.
And I have a big problem with that. Mainly because the son like tells him multiple times that like you're like stop with the stories, have a real connection. Like the opening scene at the wedding, like he's at his son's wedding telling this long story about how like right before his son was born, which seems really selfish on his part to do that at his son's wedding, like taking up all that time.
He can't dial it down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's what his son's saying. Like this is not your time. Like
You're dying, old man. I'm the king now. Let me have my time.
And then later, the part that got me the most was when, like, 2/3 through the movie, when they have that conversation between the son and the dad, and the son's like, "I'm trying to reach out and have a connection with you. Can you shoot me straight, like just one time, like just one time? I want you to tell me to just be honest, like be honest with me." And the dad's like, "I am being honest with you. I have been, and if you don't think so, that's on you. That's not on me." And the son's just like, "Well, I guess well fuck me then. I guess like."
Guess
he
my dad
just-
sucks and he's gonna
Yeah.
die.
Yeah, and they have that reconciliation later with his dad never like saying that like
Yeah.
never
Owning up to it,
embellished
never-
this
yeah.
Yeah.
and stuff, and that just like paints the whole movie in a bad light for me
Mm.
because it just seems like he's being a very selfish person, making his story like pressing his stories on people who think that he's trying to have a connection with them when he's just being very selfish when he's just trying to talk about himself all the time.
So I see it too. I wrote that down basically verbatim in my notes. Basically, is it pride? Is it faith? Is it selfishness? Is it what is it?
It's a delusion for
Is it
him.
delusion? Maybe he's well. I mean, maybe he's. It's just like basically whenever you catch a fish, what happens every time you tell it?
Yeah,
You know,
the
it's a
story
big
gets
fish,
bigger.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like that is just basically this old man's identity, and I mean it's definitely not great for it
Yeah.
because it makes you just grit your teeth at him.
Right.
But
It does paint him as kind of unlikable, even though you do. It feels like the story wants you to like him, and
Right.
totally.
Well, that's why they give you
You
Ewan
don't
McGregor.
till like the
Yeah.
very
Like him.
end, yeah.
Yeah.
You really don't like older him until the very end.
Mhm.
See, I still didn't like him at the end. Even though he's dead, I'm just like,
Good.
okay, there's no more stories at least that
Yeah.
they have
Yeah,
to
but
sit
at least
through.
it confirms like the son had some like confirmation that the stories that were being told were actually a part of his father's story again, but he just realized and
But he wouldn't realize that though. Like his son
Until
would
he
be like,
died.
I didn't think that like any of that was true.
Yeah, I
don't
mean,
understand what's happening.
if I'm, God, if I'm,
Because like you don't know how much he embellishes
If
because
I'm-
he's never like that giant I was telling you was like 9 feet tall. He's really like 7 feet tall.
Right.
Like he could think like he was just tall to him, like he was maybe 6'6" or something. Like he never told him the amount to which he embellished his stories, and he
Right.
even never even like admitted that he was like embellishing his stories. And when
Slightly wrong.
and when confronted with it, he's just like, "That's on you, not on me."
Yeah.
Like,
This feels like an opportunity for him
What?
to really, like, if they were really going to want to push the drama on this, they'd be like, you know what, you're right, yeah, like, some of this stuff is a little bit over the top and stuff like that, and then there would be, like, a nice monologue on, like, well, here's why, and then maybe there'd be a story on why he chooses to embellish, which would have been, like, a great, wonderful, heartfelt scene that I would have wrote, but I'm not Tim Burton, and I don't direct movies, so what the fuck do I know? But they went with, I'm old, fuck off, like, let me have this.
It's very realistic.
That's pretty true.
And then I banged
Stuck
the
in his
twins
ways.
several times, and DeVito watched. Like, you know,
Speaking of, I got another story.
Yeah.
That continues on.
yeah, I don't know. Like, I definitely think like there was a great opportunity, and they just chose to let him be worse for it. And then they want you to have, like, these emotional vibes that you're like like. I don't know if the movie actually really does want you to feel sad at the end whenever he dies and make it feel like, sure, like, how the son copes with his father's death, regardless of their relationship and who the character in front of you is like a nice little beautiful transition with him telling that story and letting his dad have that final moment. Even if you don't like the dad, and even if, like, you're, like, with me and Price and Mason, probably Nathan, maybe even Kel a little bit, on this one, and saying that you're like, okay, the dad does kind of suck with his relationship with his son, because his son's trying to be
for
really
sure.
genuine.
Yeah, no, it's frustrating. You
Yeah.
can feel the son's frustration.
And
Because it's Billy Crudup. and he's
right,
awesome.
and Billy Crudup, only second to Christian Bale, damn it.
Barely. And
Billy
it's
Crudup was
close.
going to be Batman, and they fucking ruined him. So, but you get to that moment where it's just like, I don't know, like, because of that scene and how it all defines all, like, I walk away very sour on his death and stuff like that, because it's just, like, I don't fucking care. He's an old storyteller, dude. Like, yeah, I know 10 of those dudes, and they're going to die too, and I'm not going to need a movie about them. So,
Yeah, I don't know. I think it kind of highlights that those kind of storytellers, like, regardless of whether they're embellishing or not, like, I think it's valuable, it's entertaining, and it's something that you might find that you would miss when they do move on, too. I think that's maybe a little bit of what it's supposed to be, too, is to kind of remind you that, like, your grandparents and stuff like that, even if they are just blowhards just
Yeah.
telling you ridiculous stories that aren't entirely true at all, like, they're still, like, it still has its own value.
see, I
Which
agree.
is like confirmed in the very last scene. He was like telling his son those stories. So
Yeah.
that person, that like his father's legacy lives on by those dope stories and not about like,
Sick
oh, I
stories.
work
Right.
at a bank.
Yeah,
What?
like, who cares? Like, that's the thing, it's like,
No.
those aren't fun stories.
No.
right.
Embellishing makes things far better
Right.
than they would be normally.
I think there's going to be a strange moment in my life whenever I die and people show up and talk about my pocket pussy story. And that's going to...
Oh, God.
You're like, but that wasn't even embellished.
Yeah. Zero embellishment.
I live that.
Maybe that's part of my thing where I'm like,
Yeah.
why aren't you living life enough ridiculously
Yeah.
to just have your
Like,
stories
you
be...
need more.
Like,
yeah, you need more
Grandpa Tom
stories.
Cruise's
Right,
stories.
like, you
No,
just
that
need...
was real.
Yeah.
This dude's never flown a day in his life as recklessly as I have, and I have a problem with that.
See, I agree that that is the thesis of this movie, but I think it misses that thesis. Because, again, like, when he confronted and asked, are you embellishing these stories? Just shoot me straight once. That was his opportunity to say, like, I love you, and this is the way that I'm showing you love and, like, how much I care about you, to tell you these stories
Will.
that you
Will
would
is his
enjoy.
name.
Well,
Because he yells,
and I will
am
forget
Will.
that name, and that's it.
I am telling you stories, Will.
What's the last
He
name?
just gets offended.
Bloom.
Bloom. Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember thinking the Bloom Brothers throughout this movie too.
Yeah.
A lot of
That's unfortunate.
skippable names. No, that's a good movie. Shout out to Jill and Annabeth. Hey, Jill and Annabeth, we're talking about Bloom Brothers for 5 seconds.
Oh no.
I just
heard-
But we're not talking about that movie right now, and we're gonna keep it that way. But I guess in all of our long tangents aside, real quick before we get into any questions, and the question I suppose, and I don't know if Kelly even has one, but Kelly, is there anything that like sticks out as like?
I'm ready, yeah,
I mean, it's
I can
Mason's
do
pick;
that,
it
yeah.
should be his, right? Is there like what's like the worst? Like, what's the thing you're like? Okay, I love this movie, but this part is just like hard to get through. Do you have that in this movie?
That's where, like, I was genuinely trying to think. I was like, I think it's too drawn out. Because even while I'm going through it, even when I just watched it with Price, I was like, I would like get antsy and I'd be like, okay, like come on, wrap it up. And I don't know if it's because I've seen it so many times, but then that's when I was trying to be like, okay, like if I directed this, what would I cut out? But like I said, if I cut something out, like you cut up such a significant portion or something that would like lead on to the next part.
Mhm.
So I really struggled with trying to pinpoint which story to cut out of it. But I think like that's probably the biggest contingency for me at least. I think it is, I do hear you, it is frustrating on the whole father aspect about him like really not owning up with his son and having that. But in my mind, I'm just like, well, that's that character. Like, he's painted that way. And, like, I don't know. I'm very, like, accepting of that character. And that, like, at the very end, it's kind of all reconciled, at least partially. Enough for me to be like, okay, whatever. I'll let that fly. And obviously his son does, too, because his son's like, yeah, let me tell you this crazy story about my dad. So it's almost like you have to put your, like, I guess understand from the son's perspective, because it sounds like at the end, he's showing that, like, he came to peace with it. And he lives on telling these stories, even though he could have at the end, based off of the people he saw at all that funeral, been like, oh, here was the real story, or what I can piece together from it. So
I'm gonna go ahead and get the 2 easy ones out of the way. This kind of movie, the only problem is it's kind of an assignment. Like, once you're kind of in this movie, you can't drop it halfway through. Like,
That's
you're,
very true.
you're
You
pretty
couldn't
much,
watch this in 2 settings, or
Yeah.
you'd be
You
very
really could.
Like you do,
No.
Mason.
Yeah.
Well,
all movies.
Which is
you're
why I
right.
hated
Normally
this.
sometimes I will.
Yeah.
But this kind of movie, that might be a dilemma.
You've
of it.
shot that tree
Yeah.
a million times.
I'm waiting for him to shoot this bird.
I don't understand. There's 4 trees, and 1 dog, and
one shotgun.
I have a feeling that this bird needs to be in the tree off in the distance there.
Mhm.
I don't know,
can't
man.
do it. I have chased this
I've had a
bird
good
around
time
these
watching
4
you
trees.
shoot these trees several
Over
million
and over.
times, though.
Those poor trees.
It's the best gameplay footage loop we're gonna have.
The dog does a very good job.
Have you
of
tried
making
shooting
sure...
with a dog, but then killing John Wick when he comes to kill you? Sorry, Mason, go ahead.
Oh no, you're good. I think that there might be parts of this movie that you do dislike if you do end up watching it, maybe for the first or 100th time. Like maybe the romance, maybe the southern accent, whatever it is.
Mhm.
Me for
Southern.
one, I can't really pick anything out just because I do think while it is a little bit long, while it is kind of an assignment, I think it's all very well sewed together. And I don't know, I don't think that Tim Burton could have made a better, like, what's it called, like, live action or, you know, like, real, you know, non-animated movie. There it goes. You did it.
There you go.
Now don't fuck
You
it
just
up.
needed to shoot it that many times.
Yeah. You got fed up.
You know, it's funny that you had 2 points on it, because I have 2 major points that I typically make in movies.
Yeah.
Is use of nudity. Where's my tits? Where's my dick?
Well,
So here's my big thing. We
Sandra
get
Templeton
girl.
is a classy lady.
No, but we get girl mystic mermaid butt, right?
Oh yeah, you
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah.
Got
PG-13.
And they start to tease you in the deep water murky stuff with boobs, but we never actually get it, which I hate. If you're
I
gonna-
love that. The teasing it makes you wonder.
No, I'm not here to edge. If this is better be what it's about. But also-
You don't have imagination.
Yeah, but also I think that it misses the prime opportunity if it's going to use nudity and embellishing stories. How great comedy you could run with it, and then it's like the dad tells a story, right? And he's just like, "So I'm banging the 2 twins, right?" And then like he drops his pants, and you just hear an anchor drop, implying that's his penis, right? Missed opportunity. Why am I not writing Big Fish 2 right now? So.
Good question.
Yeah, I'm always equality on nudity. If you're gonna see girl butt, at least give us Ian McGregor butt. If you're gonna see like naked girl swimming
Dude,
mistily
your
in the
dad-
I
dark.
mean, we've proven out that if dong is hung, your score goes up.
Significantly.
2 points,
Yes,
at least.
at least.
I
I,
don't
res-
argue with that
I
logic.
respect movies. Hey,
Cal's on board.
Yeah.
You
Kelly's
guys
like,
are good.
That's the point I can get
Find the-
behind.
Find the flaw in the logic.
Yeah,
It's
I
not
know.
there. I'm all about equality, baby. If I'm seeing TNA, I better see DE too. Hang it for the homies. But I don't know if anybody else has any comments on the nudity, or if we just want to get into the question.
I've got a question.
Sure.
Yeah, Mason.
Mason, what's your question?
Do you guys think a remake will happen of this, and will it be good or bad?
Yes. It's called... Wait, no.
A remake.
Yeah, you're sorry.
Like a true remake.
Like a true...
Forrest
Well,
Gump
I know
actually
how
came out
remakes
first,
are
so-
now. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
talking about, like, a slight little story of the giant, a spin-off of the
Oh,
giant.
well,
I'm
no,
talking
I'm not
like
saying
a...
spin-off or anything, but I mean
Oh,
like a
remake of it.
spiritual successor or
like a
Let's
movie
play
that...
a remake.
remake.
I would say a remake.
We're talking
I think-
straight within this world, so like Billy
I think-
Crudup is like the dad now or
I
something.
can't
Ooh.
imagine that they would actually remake this.
I would be
No.
It
worried to
didn't get
death.
big enough to do
You,
that.
you think it's something that could actually come up?
I think it could. I do think it has a little bit more ground than... I mean, it's not like the most popular movie of 2003 or
No.
whatever it came
No.
out. But, like,
And it's definitely not Tim
I
Burton's
don't
most
think it
favorite
would be
movie.
good
No,
Yeah.
if they were to
it's
do
different
it.
from what he usually does.
Right, so you're not going to get Burton. I don't think it does, just because, I mean, just for the reasons I just said out loud. Like, if you're a Burton fan, this probably isn't in your Burton like favorite film fan.
Yeah,
Like,
not necessarily, because it doesn't.
It's very
not as
un-Burton,
strong
like,
of a
in
Burton.
right in execution. Like, very much the whimsical stuff. Like, as I watched it, I'm like, oh, I totally believe this is Burton. But you know, if you're a
Didn't do
Burton, like,
Beetlejuice.
if you're a fan, right, you think
Oh.
Beetlejuice, you think
Yeah.
old school '91 Batman or '90 Batman and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You think the new Alice in Wonderlands and things like that. Like,
Yeah.
you're getting more into, like, you want him at 12. I feel like that's where people who like his stuff like him at 12, and he's a little too tame for this. This
Yeah.
is Fantastic Mr. Fox
For Wes
his
Anderson?
catalog. Yeah,
That's the only time I liked him.
that's exactly my point. So you're gonna
I
have the
mean,
prices.
Me
of
and Bryce
the Tim
agree on
Burtons.
that one, I guess. That is my favorite Anderson.
It's gonna be the
film.
prices of the Tim Burton crowd who say,
Mhm.
"Yeah, I like this one because it feels like it's tame," or you're gonna have Kelly being like, "I don't know, Kelly, would you even want a remake of this?" Like,
No, I wouldn't. Please
Okay,
don't.
so
Like,
yeah,
don't.
so yeah.
Like, don't. I really don't.
so then you
yeah.
have the diehard fans who are like, "We don't want it. This is a great
touch
one-off.
it,
Don't
yeah.
ruin it."
Well, to be fair though, like a remake existing doesn't hurt the original. Like it
You're
could
right.
be
It-
good.
it hurts the
probably
new
wouldn't
one.
be.
It could hurt the new one potentially.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it
the
gets
old one.
compared to
Yeah.
it, but its existence alone does not do anything to affect the old one in theory.
That's true.
So I'll ask you this, Mason.
Mhm.
Do you have a pitch in mind for it? Because if you have
No.
because my pitch.
I don't
in
want
mind-
a remake.
All right, so I don't want it either, but here's the pitch, and here's why it doesn't even go anywhere in my head. Is that you go Billy Crudup. Billy Crudup's the dad. He's been kind of repeating some of the stuff, but obviously he tends to like he probably has a son as well, or maybe it's a daughter.
He
'cause
does.
you gotta
At the
have
end,
a-
he does have a son. Yeah.
Right. Well,
Mhm.
you know, Marion Cotillard, whatever, bring her back. That keeps the movie afloat. But
Better.
and then,
Oh, so this is a sequel where now
yeah, this is
he's
sequel,
gonna-
direct sequel.
yeah.
So now,
Okay,
Which
so
is how
that
it would
that I vibe with a little bit.
Okay,
Yeah,
so-
that's the only way it could happen.
but he doesn't make some of the same dumb head mistakes that his southern dad did. That, you know, the people who are like me and Price are like, give him a real relationship, and he's like, okay, so he beats him in a more genuine thing. But then it starts to sound a little bit too Princess Bride-y, and I feel like it'll just start to be Princess Bride,
Yeah.
but
I
worse.
see that.
What's wrong with Princess Bride?
Nothing. Princess Bride's
It's not
I
great.
know.
Fish.
I'm okay with that.
Right, I'm good with that, but this
Fuck.
movie is also Forrest Gump, so this is
Yeah.
my why we're gonna just make a sequel that's just Princess Bride, but probably worse than Princess Bride. So I think for all those reasons and the crowds that you would appeal it to, doesn't really feel like it's like a good fit in the scheme of things.
You have to be old and strong to
Yeah,
open
you
that
gotta
door.
be older,
Yeah.
but I need that rope in there at some point.
Are you hanging the dog? But all right. Anyway, any other thoughts before we get into scores?
I don't think so.
I do not.
Nathan, lead the way with you.
I think it's a pretty solid movie. I think it tells a good story, a story that's worth being told. Yeah, I mean, it's a fun ride. It is a little overly long in sections, but I don't know. I'd say I enjoyed it most of the way through, so I'll land at a 7.5 on it. I think it was pretty good, and I've seen it before, but it had been so long that I hardly remembered it. But it was still a pretty good film even this time around. I wasn't feeling like they needed to hurry along
Yeah,
quite the
to
same.
wrap
I
it up.
guess.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Bryce?
Oh, okay. We're jumping around now.
Yeah.
Mm.
Like I said before, the main crux of this movie I was not on board with because like it feels like the movie's wanting you to like the dad or the grandpa or however you want to say it, the old man that's telling the stories, and I never really did because his son multiple times is like, this is what I want from you. This is what I want you to do. And he's just like, no, 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 no. It's your fault, not mine. Go do something else. I'm going to tell stories anyway. But the movie itself, like, it's fun. I mean, I enjoy the stories. Some of the stories drag more than others. Like, I think the carnival and the heavenly city, I think those stand
Yeah.
out above
Heavenly
the
City
others.
was a little long.
I think that-
one-
I think the giant storyline and the witch one, which I include like the first witch and the last one,
Right.
I think those kind of drag as compared to the other ones, and those are big chunks of the movie. So big chunks of the movie do drag for me. But again, I still kind of enjoyed it because I enjoyed like the embellishment of it, and then Steve Buscemi, loved him. Never even talked about one
Star
of
movie.
my favorite scenes where they're like dancing at the city or whatever, and he's like dancing
not,
with
no.
the guy, and
Yeah.
Steve Buscemi's like, It's like, why
That's
is
what
he
he
doing
realized.
that?
Like that
He's
was
like,
his
I can't be
realization.
here.
I need to leave.
Steve Buscemi was very 30 Rock in that moment where he's like, If you've seen the meme of him like with like rock band shirt and it's like him in like a
Yeah,
backwards hat and he's in high
the
school
fellow
skateboard.
kids thing.
Hello, fellow
Yeah,
kids.
hey fellow kids, like it's like you're so old. There's no way that's ever believable.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
If you can believe Ewan McGregor was in high school, why not believe Stu Buscemi was in
It's
the
true.
same high school?
That's true.
So it's just below me, middle of the road for me because I still don't really enjoy it that much. So I'm gonna go with a 4 for it.
Mason. Look, I can throw it too.
Nice. So the problem with this movie is that not everyone's gonna like it. Not everyone that you suggest this
Yeah.
movie to is going to come back to you smiling and so happy and ready to suggest it to other people.
Yeah.
With that being said, it is a movie that I love dearly, and I will give it a 9.
Mm.
Wow.
But
Mason's like, screw those people.
I can absolutely
Was there
understand.
wrong?
This movie,
It's on
People
them.
suck. I know.
Yeah. He
they
takes
can
after
find
the
me after
grapevine.
this.
Mason's trying so hard to be that dad in the
Yes, he
future.
is.
So true. I'll tell his stories. I don't care. This movie is kooky. It is so
Kooky.
silly.
Kooky.
God bless this movie. Just it never stops with it. Like when he finds a giant and like he just breathes because he's in this cave and then he just rolls backwards for like 30 yards. Like come on, and, like just silly crap. Like the witch that shows her eye and then she's like, oh, you're good. Oh, okay. Well, that's fine. Like everything was just such a strange scene. Like every single thing ended in a weird way. But overall, I really, really do enjoy this movie. It's a hair long, but it does wrap it up in those like last 10 minutes or so. And for that, I just really like it. They could have done the ending a lot worse. And I think that they nailed the ending.
I feel like the ending was something that you knew was coming. Like you knew it was going to end.
If he didn't
exactly
die
the
at the
way it
end,
did.
for instance, if he didn't die at the end, you're gonna
I've been
feel
so
hollow.
mad. Yeah.
Secondly, if you
That
didn't
old man needs to
see,
die.
if you didn't see all of the people, maybe or some kind of like, is this real? Is this fake?
Confirmation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
like it
Yeah.
definitely needed that scene with the people, and you
Yeah.
knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Like that's absolutely how this movie ends.
Yeah.
But that's fine that it's completely predictable.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, I think predictability is okay if it's done right. If you know it's coming, but it still sticks the landing. Like I can be a firm believer on that one. But
Well, and this movie's not trying to be a mystery.
right, this
No.
movie isn't trying to give you like big twist or turns or anything like that.
It is a fairy tale.
Right. I was about to say the biggest
Yes.
twist is that he wasn't banging Helena Bonham Bonham Carter character, like, and it wasn't a secret family or things like that.
Yeah, that was the one thing where it's like, oh, maybe he is actually
Right.
bad.
I'm like, no, he
It's
just
like, no, he's
he just
genuinely a good guy.
loves Jessica Lange.
Mhm.
What's her name again? What's the character?
Sandra Templeton.
Sandra Templeton. That's right.
Sandra Templeton.
Sandra Templeton. Yes.
Sweet angel.
I believe she was. I bet she was a horse girl, which means she's fucking nuts. But anyway, yeah, this movie has some highs. This movie has some lows. None of the lows are penis. So
None of them are dragging the ground.
no, there's not.
When they could have been.
They could have been. There could have been. There could have just. I think a lot of this movie actually teases me with like what it could have done. Like not just with the nudity. I promise.
Yeah.
But like you have.
Could have been.
Yeah, you have Marion Cotillard, and then she's just kind of, and then
This is early though.
this is earlier.
This is very early.
right,
in her
but
career.
she's still been a
7
talented
years
actress.
before
Yeah.
It's the role. It's not the actress. We know
No.
this much is ready with that. But, you give me that. You give me Helena Bonham Carter, and she crushes her role. Credit's due. Like I think she did exactly what she needed to in her stuff.
Ewan McGregor did too.
Ian McGregor was great. The romance stuff I still find jarring. I'm like, no.
That's not okay.
That
It's
is-
a fairy tale.
That is not how I would have gotten my wife.
Oh, for sure, no.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kelly-
I mean,
Yeah.
it's not the real way that happens.
No.
at
Yeah.
all.
All I'm saying is like if I'm Price, I'm like concerned that you like this so much because it's like I don't know.
No,
like
but-
Is somebody gonna
Is
show up one day
somebody
with a
gonna-
shit ton of flowers, Kelly, and you're gonna be like, sorry,
What
Bryce,
the fuck
you
is
know,
this?
show
Yeah.
up with a bunch of lilies
Bye.
in our door or
Yeah.
something.
Love
you're like,
lilies.
Hey,
I fucking love
chance.
lilies. Sorry,
Yeah.
Bryce,
You know,
what am I
The
gonna do?
lilies, Bryce.
Yes, the lilies.
Tell me you didn't see this coming.
So all it takes is to know Favorite Girl's Flower and buy every one of
It's
them in
not
the
easy,
tri-state
guys.
area.
Take notes.
Yeah.
Find the local carny and get all the
Yeah.
information from
Yeah,
him.
yeah, spend like 5 years working for a carny.
Yeah.
See, I told you it felt
You
like
did work
forever.
out, yeah.
Oh, it was several years.
Yeah, it was.
Like that's. Which I feel like they do make it briefer than it actually.
Well, I think it
Yeah,
was
that's fair.
months. I think he gave him.
No,
wasn't
it was
every
like
month?
a
Because
couple
he
of
got
years.
he got like a piece of information per month.
Oh
It
yeah,
was,
it was.
yeah.
It was
At
a
one
long
point, he does explicitly say that it was like a certain number of years.
Okay.
I don't remember
Yeah.
how many though.
Anyway,
Yeah.
and then Danny
Regardless,
DeVito's
yeah.
great. Danny DeVito's great. So
Give us a
Oh,
number.
absolutely.
Number.
It's a 6.5. It's
Okay.
yeah, it's in that category where it's like it's close to a 7, but it underdelivers on a couple things and does some things that annoy me just enough to stick it there. Also, no dong. What's up?
No, Dom, what's up? All right, Kelly.
No, Don, what's up?
Billy Crudup was not doing enough in this movie to not be hanging dong. That's my
Oh,
argument. Fight me. Go ahead, Kelly.
I don't think he was doing enough. He
I'm
played
a really
the-
classy lady and I like mystery, so I like to just use my imagination.
All right, fine. Then Billy Crudup butt would have sufficed if they're gonna show girl mermaid butt. at
Yeah,
least it-
I agree.
He looks
This
like he'd
was
have a
like,
thick
you
butt,
know,
too.
Early 2000s,
Yeah.
so right, yeah, wasn't the same. But so for me, I like number one. I like like I said, when you step back and look at the intention of the movie and the purpose. Like I think it nails it really well. I follow what they're trying to do with it. At the end, yes, predictable, but again, already discussed. Like it wasn't supposed to be unpredictable, so I thought that they laid that out well. And then not only how they like developed their storyline, but I thought that they executed well as well. So like you were saying, Mason, it's a fun like kooky story. It's ridiculous. It's I know I love that term. It is just like it's so ridiculous, but that's why I love it. But it's not so over the top like Tim Burton usually would. So that's why I thought it was really cool. I was like, okay, you could have made that way more outrageous, but I think then that going back to like the father's staple of like, oh, these stories did happen. They just have a little bit of a twist to them.
Yeah.
So I think a couple of things still knocking it for me is just it's still drawn out, but I still don't know what I would change about it. So I think that that's kind of a negated score. And then also, yes, I do feel the frustration with the son and his father's relationship. I think that it was still somehow rectified at the very end. So not totally pissed off to that. So I'm also a 9.
Hey,
Yes. Mhm.
9 crew.
Yes.
9.
And you're right. It's not for everybody. Not everyone's gonna watch it and be like, "This is incredible." Otherwise, why it would be a more popular movie. And it's like a lot of people when they ask like, "What's your favorite movie?" and I say this, they're like, "I've never heard of that." And I'm like, "Well, you don't have to go watch it."
Yeah, you're
And so I was like, "It's not like I recommend it.
Yeah.
It's just my favorite."
Yeah.
But I also watched it when I was like younger, and I don't know, it hit more just at that time in my life.
Yeah.
I think the most interesting thing about your review of it is it's your favorite movie, but you still only give it a 9.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
still something off with it. Yeah,
You're right. I mean, it's
there's still something off,
a little
but I
long.
still.
It's a little this.
Yeah,
it's
it
not
can
for
still be
everybody.
my favorite.
Yeah.
No, it's
And
not.
it's nostalgic for you too, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
like
I
it's
thought so.
personal for me.
Mhm.
So I
You
just,
made a daughter.
yeah.
No, that's the wife.
Oh.
The whole point of this is you're trying to save your
Create
wife
a daughter.
from apparently every way in which she was bound to die.
I thought it was to shoot the trees and
Hey,
get
yeah.
a bird.
I'll be damned. I thought it was a peach hunting trip.
But
Spin that wheel.
further
Yeah.
ado, Kelly, you want to spin the wheel?
Yeah, let's let her do it.
Oh.
You've got to spin it from
Oh.
the
Probably
right side.
Give us your best Vanna White impression.
We
Yeah.
could probably spin
And
it.
you have to
from
spin it
that way.
very hard.
Wait.
I want
Here.
bad
Yeah,
education.
put it over here.
do
She's
I
gotta
really
spin
have
it.
to spin it hard?
Yeah, like you got to spin
Yeah,
it.
you
Not
want
like
you
super, super hard.
I'm really
Also,
strong.
real quick,
You are
Dylan, Dylan, the wing nut, make sure it's loose. The wing nut.
Oh, yeah, it's good. It's loose.
That was a good spin.
That might be
spin.
one of the best spins we've
Let's-
had.
let's-
we're
let's
at
see
it.
what we
Very
got.
good. I could do this every
Queen
day.
of the
Oh,
Damned.
Yes!
Oh boy.
That
Oh,
is
man.
Queen of the Damned, everybody's favorite music video movie.
I can't wait to hear. Isn't that the band's name?
No. You're
no,
thinking Queens of the Stone Age,
but
I
this,
think.
yeah, you're
You
thinking
said that there
Queens
was a band that was
Yeah,
like
well,
specifically
so
in
This
movie.
is a movie about vampires that are in a rock band, and
Oh my god, this sounds awesome.
the
Oh, that's
songs
so good.
are composed by Korn
Cool.
and like a lot of
What?
the popular metal bands
That's
of that
awesome.
era.
Yeah.
I can't wait for this.
It's
to be
like
on
late
Friday.
know,
90s.
in
I bet you and me are
It's gonna be like Repo. I bet.
Oh,
Me and Nathan are like,
Yeah, I'm excited to watch this. I have it.
Yeah.
And I have one of the songs on Rock Band from this movie, so we'll
We can
play a
play
little
that.
bit of that.
Yeah.
just to whet your appetite.
Yeah.
God.
This is gonna be a good
It's giving me
time.
Repo
Get you
vibes.
going.
Yeah.
By the way,
it's,
I watched-
it's a little bit more
I
grounded
watched
than Repo.
Coraline for the first time ever, and this
I
is
haven't
this,
seen
so-
that.
this
Oh,
is
that's
giving
good.
me such vibes
Yeah.
with the no eyes.
I can see that.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But anyway, guys, that's
Tim Burton too,
our
I think, right?
show.
It is,
We've
yeah.
got Queen of the Damned coming up. Make sure to get your
Remember.
Slipknot shirts and your Jinko jeans. That probably all tracks for it.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to think of what else you get.
Wallets with
Chains.
chains.
Pants.
Yeah,
Black
trip
eyeliner.
pants, black eyeliner. Ooh, the
Black
stud
nail
bracelets.
polish. Oh, yeah.
My Chemical
Stud
Romance.
bracelets. Yeah. No, too
fishnet
soon. Too soon.
t-shirt,
Yeah.
Grab all of that, suit up. It's gonna be a great time. If you like the content we keep putting out, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Make sure to hit the bell to make sure whenever we put these updates out. And if you like Kelly being on here, let her know in the comments below. Don't be weird.
You're only allowed to be weird with us.
Yeah.
Only with the boys. I see you, internet.
Bye.
Bye, guys. See you next week for Queen of the Damned. Bye-bye.
I'm kind of excited about Queen of the Day.
I'm very excited about
Oh,
Queen of the
I'm
Damned.
very
I
not
watched
excited.
some
Yeah, I'm
parts
very not
today.
The more excited me and Nathan are, and Mason kind of gets
Yeah.
on our boat, the
Yeah.
more price goes
It's-
down.
Yeah, it's a graph. For
You
sure.
know what, Nathan? I'm not doing anything roast eating. Put it on.
Yeah.
Just watch it.